channels like advertising through SocialMedia.com. And then to back that out to not only a conversion of, hey, this is a user, but how engaged is that user? How many page impressions, or how much time do they spend? And I think that those are metrics that people don't really take a look at as much as, hey, great, I got an install. Installs mean nothing, so people aren't going to use your application again. So it's very important to figure out what methods, whether it's the organic invite system, or if it's going to an advertiser, drive the more engaging users, and then keep spending or keep going to those channels and optimize them, optimize the content and the flow.
Stay on that topic, so you're spilling right into retention, right? So you get them to your app, you got to install. How do you keep them? What are the things you measure? How can you adjust content, generate more valid page views? And then how do you get that person to actually invite friends and have them coming back for multiple sessions?
Sure. In a lot of the applications that we studied, especially even some of the more, I guess, complex ones, one of the big categories in this space is social gaming as well. And I think that from the applications that we've looked at, a lot of times, again, the applications start off very focused on the whole referral and growth rate portion of it. But as the application evolves, there are more complex and compelling mechanisms that are built into the application itself that get users to come back. So one of the things that a lot of developers and a lot of applications that we've seen do is really to have a way that, whenever a user performs an action within an application, have it be compelling enough for the person on the receiving side to feel that, that they want to check the application out. So it's less of an invitation request, but more built into the actual, like in the case of social games, a lot of these invitations and requests are built into the game itself, and it's a functionality. So it's really like an attack or a punch or a poke. So it doesn't feel like you're like inviting your friends to check out this app. It's more like it's a natural way to play the game or to do something in the application. So that's one of the things that that we've seen and is a trend.
Albert?
So one of the more advanced things we look at is the concept of cohort analysis and re-engagement. So what I mean by that is they iterate extremely rapidly, they change versions extremely rapidly, and what we help them do is we track how each version that they churn out re-engages their audience. So what we track, for example, is let's say you have a long iteration cycle, just it's a week-long iteration cycle. We can help a lot of the developers figure out, version A, which they launched in week 1, how it compares to version 2. And what you want to do is you want to track how each version that you're rolling out is engaging and re-engaging and reactivating your audience. In addition to that, you also want to get a little bit more granular in that you want to see how males and females re-engage in the application. We find that in a lot of the applications we're tracking, females have a delta of up to 50% more virality and more re-engagement in certain applications. So that obviously helps you figure out which type of audience you want to target. And geographically, there are some differences as well around virality and re-engagement. And it's just really, I think it pays to closely track the conversion rates and their engagement rate based on cohorts. And cohorts can also be defined from sources as well for traffic. So it can come from ad network 1 or ad network B, or it could come from refers from friends, or a refer from a partner that you're co-promoting with.
So when you're iterating different versions, let's say on the week-long schedule, are you going back to the same audience to see if they like each succeeding version better? Or are you doing like an A/B testing? And if you're doing the A/B testing, how do you know that the audiences are comparable?
So there's a couple of things. There's one is the messaging testing. Messaging testing you can do very rapidly. So a lot of folks they're testing the text that's in the invite messages, and that's the most basic form and probably the highest ROI you'll get for A/B testing. And then there's a more macro level testing where you're tracking how a person that enters through the first version of the application, how likely they're going to re-engage in the application versus someone that is entering into version 2 of the application, how they responded, and normalizing those two curves.
That's part of this question's coming from. We do see different demographics on the different social network sites. Specifically, MySpace is a much younger audience, whereas High Five and especially Friendster is deep in terms of, in China and the Philippines. So it was very important for those applications to change it up. Across the different categories, the categories are about the same in terms of more males playing gaming apps. It's about 50-50 almost for the dating that we've seen, and then the communication apps, it's more females.
Right. I guess from my point of view, coming into this industry, one of the most surprising things, or not so surprising things, is just how much time people have. And how much time they spend playing these applications. And I think one of the things that is very surprising in social media is that a lot of the interactions themselves are actually very simple. Specifically within gaming, it's very different than the traditional big multiplayer games like World of Warcraft that people are very used to. But on social networks, the games are much more lightweight, yet people will still spend hours playing them. And in terms of demographics, there's like, it also hits a much broader audience than, the normal gaming, hardcore gaming demographic that people might be, used to seeing. For example, in a lot of petting applications, you have like 35-year-old mothers or single mothers in Ohio spending like 3 hours playing a pet game. And a lot of these users, not only do they find it fun and it's something easy that they understand, they actually don't necessarily even expect the same type of like, a lot of hardcore gamers are very focused on the graphic quality or the fact that it's 3D. Like, you don't need something that complex to be necessarily very successful and to have users really like whatever you're putting out there. So that to me was probably one of the most interesting things. And I guess back onto the one more thing to add on to the whole engagement discussion is that one of the other things that we look at that we've seen to measure engagement is really the average number of impressions generated per user. So we study across a number of different categories of Facebook-related applications and other social networking applications. So for messaging applications, we see, in terms of numbers, an average of 3 page views generated per user. In the dating category, we see 20 pages per user. And for gaming, we see 50. So that's kind of just to give you guys a sense of what's hot and